Okay, thanks for joining everybody. And hello everyone. Welcome to our second webinar for this Advanced Cybersecurity Technologies Prize, which we call Act 1. My name is Gunnar Tandy, and I am a prize lead. I'll be your host today. I'm a prize lead for the National Renewable Energy Lab here in Golden, Colorado, which we call NREL. So I'm the person behind the prize. I'm the one answering your questions that you send to the Act 1 mailbox. We'll put that link here in the chat so you know how to reach me as you're preparing your submission. I'm also the one sending you the USTR reports that Fania will be walking you through and reminding you how to request them through the Microsoft form. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Cynthia Sue, who is the Cybersecurity Program Manager for the DOE CSER's RMUC program, and also Fania Barwick, who is the Implementation Manager for the RMUC program. And today we're going to focus on two topics. There's a lot of content, but two topics primarily. We're going to highlight what it takes to win the first phase of this prize. And then we're going to shift our focus out to really give you an opportunity to preview what's involved in phases 2 and 3. Okay. And we're going to do this by reviewing this agenda. I'm going to start us off with just a brief review of the prize timeline and phases, and then we're going to dig into this submission package. You know, we went through all the individual components last time, but today we're going to focus on the most important pieces. Fania is going to walk you through the RMUC Utility Service Territory Report. We call that the USTR. And talk a little bit about how the information on that report will inform other components of your commitment submission package. And then we're going to shift our focus, put the headlights out, and start to look at phases 2 and 3 before we wrap up. So we'll start with key goals, talk about the technical assistance process and how that will work in phases 2 and 3. And then the section 40126 cybersecurity plan. We're going to give you an overview of that and talk to you about how that works in phases 2 and 3. Those things don't need to be addressed now. They need to be addressed in phases 2 and 3. I'll say that a few times just to make sure we're not confusing anyone. And then we'll wrap up with a brief review of some recently received FAQs and next steps. But first, just a few housekeeping items. So we are recording this webinar. We're going to post it to HeroX before the end of October. It takes a couple of weeks to get it transcribed and make it ADA compliant. We welcome your questions. We ask that you put them in the Q&A box next to the chat on the Zoom toolbar. And we're not going to respond to your questions during the webinar live today, but we will respond to them on HeroX. So look for those next week on the HeroX platform. We are using the Zoom platform, and by default, it's going to put the presentation in a full screen. So if you want to get back to the Zoom window, you can hit the escape key. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please check your audio settings under the audio tab. And you can direct message the host if you continue to experience any issues. We've also included a phone number in the meeting invite in case you need to dial in and follow along. So we're going to start off today by, like we should, review the key goals of this prize. The primary objective of this prize is to empower utilities with limited cybersecurity resources to make critical investments in training their staff, governance processes, and technologies, so they can harden their systems against threats. You know, you're going to hear these themes show up time and time again during the webinar today. So I thought it was appropriate to start us off with a review of the key goals. So this is the timeline slide that Fania walked us through so well in webinar 1. So I just want to remind everyone that there is a submission deadline coming up. It's fast approaching on November 29th for this first commitment phase. And in March of 2024, that's when we get to announce our winners. So up to 55 winners in March of 2024 will receive $50,000 cash and 60 or 120 hours of technical assistance, depending upon which track they're on, either limited cybersecurity resources or military track. Those winners of the first phase will then start competing for the second phase, which we call the planning phase. And we expect to announce the planning phase winners in October of 2024, where up to 30 winners will receive $50,000 cash and 60 more hours and 120 more hours of technical assistance, depending on which track they're on. And those phase 2 winners will then start competing for the implementation prize. And the implementation prize winners we expect to announce in March of 2025, where up to 30 winners will receive $100,000 in cash. So for those utilities that make it all the way through as phase 3 winners, they're going to walk away with $200,000 cash and either 120 hours or 240 hours of technical assistance to work with experts. So this is a great opportunity for utilities to strengthen their cybersecurity posture, and I just really want to encourage you to apply. And also, please keep in mind that if you're not selected as a winner in phase 1, the intent is for this to be a prize program and to roll out other opportunities later that you can submit for over the next couple of years. So now we're going to dig into the key elements of the phase 1 commitment submission package and highlight what it's going to take to win the first phase. So we walked through all of these components in the first webinar one by one. I'm just going to talk about the most important components and just remind everyone that in order to compete for the commitment prize, utilities will need to attend or they can watch the recording of the 2 webinars. We just posted the first webinar recording on the HeroX platform today, and the recording of this webinar we'll post in a couple of weeks. And all of these items will need to be included in that submission package. But I want to focus our attention today on the first 4 items. So the cover page and narrative, the utility profile form, and this RMUC utility service territory report that Fanya's going to walk us through. If that report's not available, there are alternative sources that you can leverage to help inform the other components of your submission package. We're going to share some of those links a little bit later in the webinar, so please pay attention to that. Also, the technical assistance request form, which really helps launch the technical assistance and informs how that's going to work for your utility if you're selected as a winner. We're not going to talk about 5 and 6 today, but I do want to say that all 6 of these items need to be included in your submission package in order for it to be considered complete. And incomplete submission packages will not be passed along to the judges for scoring. Okay. After the submission deadline on November 29th, prize judges are going to review and score your submissions. And the narrative portion is the most important part of your submission package. We're going to spend a fair amount of time on that today. It's worth a total of 90 points. These other items are also required and they're going to be reviewed by the judges, but they won't be scored. So that's the letter of support from your utility's authorizing official, your utility profile form, and the RMUC USTR report, or alternative sources if that report's not available to you. So the cover page and narrative are both included in a template, which we call the commitment narrative template. And you can find those templates on the resources tab of the HeroX website. This is our prize platform. These templates are really useful. They include additional guidance that will help you prepare your submission. And this is what the cover page and narrative template looks like. It's the first page of the narrative template. There are other pages that cover all 4 topics. And you'll notice it's a little hard to see because they're pretty small, but there's gray text within brackets. And that gray text provides you with additional guidance, which I really encourage you to review. And then you can delete it as you prepare your responses. And you'll want to attach this completed template, which includes both the cover page and the narrative in one file to your submission form. You'll notice that on the submission form that each section only accepts 1 attachment. So you won't be attaching a separate cover page from the narrative, put it all on this one template. Okay. We also included a copy of the judging criteria in the narrative because we think that's going to be useful. So just encourage you to review that carefully. It can help guide your responses. And then the final reminder is, look, your narrative's worth 90 points. It's one of the most important components of your submission package. So really encourage you to focus your time and attention on this. And next, I'm going to invite Fanya to walk us through the RMUC Utility Service Territory Report. And that will be one of the tools that will help inform your narrative, as she's going to show you examples of that. So thank you, Fanya.
Thank you, Gunnar. Hi, everyone. I'm here to give you a little more insight into how you can use the USTR to inform and support your commitment phase submission package. I'll talk through how you're going to request your USTR, walk through an example document, and then go through how you can use that information in specific places in your narrative to support your application, as well as in your utility profile. So first, how do we get this utility service territory report. You're going to use the link included on this slide. Mariah is also dropping it into the chat if you want to go ahead and click it right now. You'll fill out the form and include your utility number from the EIA 861 report. Now, what is your utility number? Great question. Where can I find that? You'll find that report on the HeroX page under the Resources tab. So we're trying to make this straightforward. I know it's a couple different steps, but if you can't find that 861 number, never fear, Gunnar is there to help you. Please reach out at the email address that Mariah provided earlier for the Act 1 prize administrator, and he'll support you in looking for that number so that we can get this form submitted. Once we have the information we need from you to locate your USTR, we will make every effort to send that report to you within 7 to 10 business days. Now, we are people and we do have competing priorities and other things that come up. So as I said, we'll make our very best effort to get it to you within 7 to 10 business days. Please be patient. And if you don't hear from us within a week or so, you can reach back out to Gunnar and just check in. The USTR is a required document in your submission package. But once again, if you don't have a USTR available, if you reach out to Gunnar and he says, I'm sorry, we don't have one for you, you can upload a document that lists the sources of information that you are using to inform your submission package. There are several publicly available sources that Mariah is going to drop in the chat here that you can use that should be able to give you a good amount of information to complete your application. Just another reminder, the prize deadline is November 29th. We are asking that your USTR requests are all submitted before November 15th. This should give us adequate time to work out any details that need to be worked out so that we can get you your report on time. Any requests that come after November 15th will not be fulfilled just because we will not be able to get that done in time. Next slide, please. All right, so what is this USTR? This is a tool that we have worked with our lab partners to create to support you in coming up with the strongest applications possible. The cover page includes some basic information around how the report was generated. It includes those links that Mariah just shared in the chat as well to the publicly available tools that you can use in addition to your USTR, and some additional background information about the definitions of disadvantaged communities that I will walk through later. Another reminder, these USTRs were created based on the best available public map layers at the time. So the accuracy of your service territory boundaries, population data, and military installation data is not guaranteed. For example, if your utility service territory was recently expanded or reduced, this may not be illustrated on the maps. So please verify the data with your internal information and make sure that you have records to support any additional information that you provide. We hope that it's a helpful tool, but as I said previously, there may not be USTRs for every single utility that wants to apply to the prize. In that case, we do encourage you to use these other publicly available tools. Next slide, please. All right, so the second page of the USTR, this is the page that has your map on it. So it includes some basic information. I'm sorry, it includes the retail territory map, the boundary layer. It also identifies any military installations in your service territory that are in the public record, and it identifies the disadvantaged community census tracts in your service territory. So in order to generate this map, we used the CGEST, Council on Environmental Quality, Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, definition of disadvantaged communities, or DACs. A census tract is considered a disadvantaged community if it meets one of the following three categories. It meets or exceeds the threshold of at least one of 8 categories of burden, and I'll get into that a little bit later, or is on land within the boundaries of a federally recognized tribe, or is completely surrounded by disadvantaged communities and is at or above the 50th percentile for low income. So those definitions are a bit complicated, and I encourage you to visit the CJEST site to get a little bit more information about those definitions. All right, page 2 of your USTR also includes the total number of census tracts within your service territory and the number of disadvantaged community census tracts, the estimated total population within your service territory, and the estimated total population within the disadvantaged community census tracts in your service territory, as well as the average census tract size. So what are we going to use this information for? Well, this information is a hopefully straightforward way for you to estimate population density so that you can tell the story of your service territory more easily and more clearly without having to do quite so much legwork. Next slide, please. So Mariah, if you can drop that CJEST link in the chat. The table on page 3 provides some additional information about the disadvantaged community census tracts within the service territory that exceed the threshold of those 8 burden categories that I mentioned. So you can see the definitions at that methodology and data link that Mariah just shared. But I'll speak a little bit broadly, just some examples to help demonstrate what this information is here. So as we saw on the previous slide, this example territory includes 22 disadvantaged community census tracts. Within those 22 disadvantaged community census tracts, 16 tracts exceed the climate burden category. This means they are at or above the 90th percentile for expected agricultural loss rate, expected building loss rate, or expected population loss rate, or projected flood risk or wildfire risk, and are at or above the 65th percentile for low income. So there's a lot wrapped in there. And when you see these burden indicators for census tracts within your service territory, you can dig into what those burden indicators mean. And again, this is going to help you tell the story of those census tracts that you're serving. For more definitions, again, please jump onto that link that Mariah is sharing. Next slide, please. All right, so the 4th page of your USTR will include, if you have any, the number of military installations in the service territory and the total area of those military installations. Again, these are only going to be included if it is public record that those military installations exist within your service territory. So if you serve installations that you know are on your service territory but are not on the map, or that are not on the map because they are outside of your technical service territory, you can indicate that in your narrative responses. Just let us know kind of the basis for the information that you're providing. Okay, so how is this USTR going to help you in your application? I know that's really what you're curious about. So we're asking you to fill in a utility profile. This is part of your application in that it's going to give a snapshot of what your organization looks like. It's an overview because we are going to need our technical experts to get an idea of what your utility looks like without being able to spend a whole lot of time researching you in the background. So this snapshot is going to give the total number of employees, the number of employees working in IT and cyber, as well as an idea of your customer, of your employee to customer or member ratio. This lets us understand your staffing levels relative to the amount of service that you are providing. Again, the budget and funding information is going to help reviewers see your organizational need and the current expenses for cybersecurity and IT services as your organization is currently structured, right? So before a prize, before any improvements that come as a result of the RMUC program. Next slide, please. So specifically, the USTR is going to help you inform this service territory profile section of the utility profile form. The overview of your service territory helps us both understand how rural your utility is in looking at meters per mile and what types of customers and critical infrastructure you serve. Those highlighted boxes are the ones that we've identified where the USTR could specifically help you answer these questions. The USTR will provide you with valuable information around military installations you are serving, the average size of census tracts, which indicates ruralness, and total population and percentage of disadvantaged communities. Additionally, this information helps us understand the access that you may have to services that your utility needs in order to improve your cybersecurity. It gives us a snapshot of who you are and who you serve. Next slide, please. Additionally, within the narrative portion of your submission package or application, the USTR can be used to help you answer required questions. So in topic 1, question 2, the USTR will provide you with information you need to support your application as appropriate for either the military track or the limited cybersecurity resources track. In this question, we're asking you to explain why you consider yourself limited cybersecurity resources. So for example, if you have very limited funding and very little staffing dedicated to cybersecurity and serve a large rural area where access to cybersecurity services may be limited, you may choose to use that information to support the idea that your utility is limited cybersecurity resources. We're looking for you to define this and then support that definition based on the information you have available, the information you know about your organization, and the information you can find on those publicly available sources. For topic 4, question 2, the USTR can provide you with useful information about the disadvantaged communities in your service territory. You can reference the CJEST burden categories to tell the story of the territory and the populations that might live within those disadvantaged community census tracts. We're really excited to offer you this tool and to connect you with these additional resources, and we really look forward to seeing your submissions and hearing the stories of you and your community. Gunnar, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fonda. Appreciate it. I share your enthusiasm and excitement. So now we're going to shift our focus. We've been talking all about the commitment phase at this point and the most important components so that you can put the most competitive package together and win this prize. So now we're going to look ahead and highlight what's included in phases 2 and 3. And as we're going through these slides, please remember, you don't need to address these items now in this phase. So we're really just sharing this information more at a strategic level to help you understand 2 things. What are you committing to long-term? And to highlight the overarching goals of this prize. So you can see how all of these pieces fit together and how the entire package, what the entire value proposition is for this prize. Okay. So we're going to dive in here and start with key goals. So the phase 1 winners will be focused on these key goals during phase 2. Each utility is going to assess their network, their system architecture, and their technology tools. And this information is going to be used by the utility to identify cybersecurity risks and vulnerabilities, help prioritize potential solutions, and to develop a roadmap and a budget to support improvements to the utility's cybersecurity posture. Each utility is going to begin working on their Section 40126 cybersecurity plan. I'm going to talk about that specifically here in just a few moments. And then in terms of evaluation criteria, these the submission packages for the planning prize will be evaluated based on these 6 criteria. Identifies gaps and prioritized risks, drafts a roadmap, captures project risks, institutionalizes a culture of continuous improvement, estimates a roadmap budget, and includes a draft section of the 40126 cybersecurity plan. A successful submission demonstrates the utility has performed these 10 things. Look, we recognize this is a lot of work. And so phase 2 is the longest of the 3 phases. So you're going to roughly have about 5.5 months to compete and pull this phase 2 package together. It's a lot of work. So rather than read through all these items, I'm just going to highlight some of the key components here. So a successful submission demonstrates the utility has completed a network and system architecture review, completed a cybersecurity technology stack assessment, developed a draft cybersecurity roadmap for improvements that include solutions for staff training, changes in policies and procedures, and changes to technology. So a people, process, technology focus. Also completed a draft budget for the implementation roadmap and an initial Section 40126 cybersecurity plan, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. And more points are possible for utilities that engage all relevant staff. You know, this is a team sport. Bring all the relevant staff into the discussion and prioritize the cybersecurity risks and solutions. Select solutions that address those prioritized risks and establish clear roles, responsibilities, and program management strategies that can maximize the likelihood of success and creates long-term processes for continuous improvements in the ability to identify and prioritize cybersecurity risks. So that's a preview of phase 2. It's a lot. And again, that's going to be a 5.5-month timeline to work on that package. Now we're going to take a look at the phase 2 winners, what they'll be focused on as they compete for phase 3 in the implementation phase. And starting off with key goals like last time, a lot of focus is on technical assistance. We're going to talk about how that TA process works in just a few moments. So the goals are the utilities will collaborate with their TA providers and industry experts to implement the solutions outlined in the planning phase. The TA providers are going to help utilities with a lot of things, including identifying potential solutions, develop criteria for selecting appropriate solutions. They're also going to coach the utilities on how to negotiate favorable service level agreements for their contracts. They're going to facilitate continued use planning for new technologies, assist with the implementation of those technology solutions, and support the development of processes to confirm the cybersecurity of solutions after they're implemented. The submission packages for the implementation prize are going to be evaluated based on these 4 criteria. Documents progress, shows likelihood of continued progress, demonstrates commitment, and includes a completed 40126 cybersecurity plan. I'll call this out later. Phase 2, it's a draft of the 40126 cybersecurity plan. In phase 3, it's a completed version of that plan. And we'll talk about how that process works in just a few minutes. A successful submission demonstrates the utility has completed a roadmap budget, made significant progress on implementing its roadmap, developed a process to test the cybersecurity of its systems after full integration of the solutions, committed to continuing to implement its roadmap, and completed its Section 40126 cybersecurity plan. And more points are possible for utilities that demonstrate a strong commitment to completing their roadmaps, include solutions that specifically improve the cybersecurity posture of operational systems in the utility. It can be maintained by the existing utility staff with minimal additional TA, and have strong leadership support, which would be evidenced by the supporting documents such as long-term commitments to the budget. So as we continue to highlight the future phases, next I want to talk a little bit about the TA work in phases 2 and 3. But first, I just want to stress that this prize is really focused on utilities with limited resources. So we don't want this situation, that is your utility having limited resources, maybe limited cybersecurity expertise. We don't want that to be a barrier for improving your cybersecurity posture. So the goal of the TA in this prize is to bring in subject matter experts and help you make these improvements. So we're going to cover this in more detail when we meet with the phase 1 winners. We'll host a webinar with them and go into a little more detail after they're selected in March of 2024. But I just want to encourage you to apply because the combination of this TA expertise and the cash are really intended to help you overcome any barriers that you're experiencing to improve your cybersecurity posture. Okay, so technical assistance. It all starts with the process starts with the utilities completing this TA request form and including it in the phase 1 commitment submission package. This TA request form and all of the templates can be found on the resources tab of the HeroX platform. And as you can see on your right, it's really just a checkbox. So select the topics that you want to address with your TA hours to support your phase 2 submission. And this is how the process is going to work. So winners will be matched with TA providers, and the utilities will be given a choice in the selection of their ultimate TA provider or TA providers. Our NREL team is going to help kick off the work with the TA providers and the winning utilities. And the TA providers will help utilities complete their stack assessments and architectural reviews, which we talked about earlier. The last box on the TA request form is other. And if this other is selected, we'll try our best to accommodate this request, but the Act 1 prize team just can't commit to it. Okay. I also want to call out that the awarded TA hours will be leveraged to complete the TA work. Also that utilities are not required to use all their TA hours. And there is an expiration though for when those hours can be used. So phase 2 winners can use their TA hours until the phase 3 winners are announced. This is roughly 12 months between when the phase 1 winners are announced in March of 2024 and when the phase 3 winners are anticipated to be announced in March of 2025. Okay, so the last section here is the section 40126 cybersecurity plan. Just want to remind you that this is only relevant to phase 1 winners who's going to start working on this in phase 2. You don't have to do this in phase 1. Okay. So this is how it's going to work. During the planning phase, utilities competing for a planning prize will document that they've completed a draft of their utilities section 40126 cybersecurity plan as part of their submission package. We're going to host webinars to train the utilities on how to complete the draft of the 40126 cybersecurity plan using templates that CSER has created specifically for this purpose. I just want to clarify also that the webinars are not going to use the TA that are awarded to the team. So these webinars will be in addition to the TA that's awarded to the commitment phase winners. So that's planning phase. Then let's talk about implementation phase, phase 3. The difference here is that utilities competing for the implementation prize must complete their 4126 cybersecurity plan and submit it to a national support lab, the national support lab, which will explain more in detail when we host a webinar explaining this to the winners. We're also going to offer webinars in phase 3 to help the teams put together their 4126 cybersecurity plan. And again, just reminding you that the webinars are not going to count against the TA that is awarded to the teams. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here. And we're going to cover off on some recent FAQs that have come in. And I'll just stress some important things to do in terms of next steps. But this is where I want to pause and invite our program manager, Cynthia Sue, to say a few closing remarks. Cynthia has really been instrumental in shaping this prize and guiding our team. So I want to hear from her, and I think you all do too. So Cynthia.
Great, thank you, Gunnar. So we can't say how excited we are to have you all in this webinar. This is the first time CSER's done a prize, and we're just thrilled at the level of participation. We hope that these webinars, the goal of these webinars is to give you additional information so you can make as competitive a submission package as possible. We want all of you to succeed. We would want all of you to be able to put in a strong package, and hopefully the webinars are giving you that. I wanted to briefly say this prize is part of the RMUC program, so the Rural Municipal Utility Cybersecurity Program. The RMUC program does more than just this prize. Right now we're running 6 cybersecurity training events. The first 3 are in Columbus, Ohio, Orlando, Florida, and Kansas City, Missouri. Those training events are free. They're free to any electric utility staff. And I'm telling you that they're very unusual. It's a 3-day training event. This training has been provided to help warfighters, cyber warfighters, defend from attacks in areas of conflict. It's really exciting to bring that training here and to be able to provide it to all the electric utilities to participate. If you're interested in that, please sign up for the RMUC email list, and Mariah's going to drop the RMUC email list in there. You just need to send an email to that email address and say, I'd like to join the mailing list. We are also planning, in addition to this prize, which is really focused on limited resources utilities, we are planning to release a funding opportunity announcement as well. So be on the lookout for that. Our goal is to be able to provide opportunities for utilities that have very, very limited resources, utilities that are sort of in a medium level of cybersecurity maturity, and utilities that are pretty advanced in cybersecurity maturity. So look for funding opportunities that really hit all of those three categories. So don't feel like if this doesn't apply to you, that nothing else is coming down the pipe. We have more planned for you. We also really understand that this technical assistance is critical for a lot of you to be successful in implementing staffing resources, staffing training. The workforce area of cybersecurity was one of the things identified in the listening sessions as a big challenge. So in addition to the trainings that we're doing here, the training that hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of the prize funding to take additional training, we are building training into every opportunity that we can, because we understand that in order for you to use the tools, you need to have the training and expertise on site to manage them, to implement them, to update them, to troubleshoot when something goes wrong. There's training just in how do you pick which tool, which cybersecurity resource tool should you even use, and how does that meet what you need? Is there duplication in your stack? Is there a way to minimize the amount of funding that you're spending on cybersecurity by looking at what your tooling set already can do? So our goal here is to give you both the money and the technical assistance and access to technical assistance to really overcome some of those barriers. So thank you very much. We're really, as Fania said, we can't wait to read your submission packages. We really want to build up some excitement that this is an opportunity that will help you be successful, and that's our goal. And we'll be looking for feedback. So all along the way, at any point, if you have feedback about whether this is working, it's not working, we should tweak it, there are other needs it's not satisfying on this or the training or the funding opportunity announcement, please do send us your feedback, because our goal here is to provide you with what you need, not just putting something out there and maybe it's useful or not. It's really guided by your feedback. So with that, I turn it back to you, Gunnar, to take us through some of the frequently asked questions and some of the next steps. Thank you.
Cynthia, thank you so much. Hopefully Cynthia's enthusiasm is triggering some call to action and inspiring you to take some next steps. So let's talk about next steps. Thank you, Cynthia. So what do you do next? So if you haven't followed this prize challenge yet, encourage you to go to this website, herox.com/act1prize. This is our HeroX prize platform, and select follow, which is in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. And this will allow you to receive any updates. Like this morning, we sent out an update that said, hey, the webinar that we recorded in September has been posted and it's available for you to view. Next, really want to encourage you to read the rules. You can find the rules on the resources tab of this HeroX platform. The rules contain everything you need to know in order to compete for this prize. So really encourage you to read the rules carefully and start your submission package. I mean, start it today. You can get the form started and then work on your templates and load them up and continue to save those updates to your form as you're building that final package, and make sure that you hit submit for your completed package before 5 p.m. Eastern on November 29th. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, that last day, which happens, reach out to me, let me know, and I'll help you make sure that your submission gets entered in and is available for the judges to review. In terms of questions, anticipating you're going to have questions along the way. So I'm the person who's responding to those questions. So this is where you're going to want to go to submit your questions when you're completing your submission package. act.prizes@nrel.gov. We'll drop that email address in the chat, and I'll do my best to respond within 1 to 2 business days or beat that when I can. And you can start working on your submission package now, as I mentioned. Save it, come back to it later, add more detail. Just want to encourage you to get that started now, so you have a better sense of what all is included in that package, and you can start to raise your hand and ask questions. We have posted 20 FAQs to HeroX. There's a FAQs tab on the HeroX platform. Really encourage you to review those FAQs. Those are questions that have come in mostly from other utilities. If they have those questions, you probably do too. And so, in the interest of sharing some of that knowledge, let's take a look at some that have come in recently. So the first one is, in terms of the webinar requirement, do you have to attend in person to the 2 webinars in order to qualify? And the answer is in person, or reviewing them. The recording is also sufficient. So that'll help still meet the attendance requirements for the prize. Participation in both is required. And if you want to read more detail on how this works, you can find more details on page 17 of the prize rules. The next question is, hey, I submitted my request for this USTR report. When should I expect to receive it via email? Bonnie mentioned this earlier. Our team is striving to share that report with you within 7 to 10 business days. We are sending it via encryption to protect that data. So if you have any issues, opening it, please reach out to me via the act.prizes@nrel.gov, and I will help you kind of walk through that. And I think Fania also mentioned that we do have a deadline for requests for that report, which is 2 weeks before the November 29th deadline. So any requests that come in after November 15th are not going to be honored. You really should get that information early on and start to inform your development of your competitive package as soon as possible. And then finally, when you pop up this form, this is another reason I'm encouraging you to start on this now. It does ask for a project title. And this question is, can you provide more information on what's expected there? So the commitment prize project title is something that the submitter creates. So it's something that you'll want to come up with on your own that you think is appropriate to describe your utility submission. And it can be entered in 2 places: the title field on the submission form, and also the commitment narrative template available on the resources tab of the HeroX platform. So if you have more questions, you post them in the chat here. We'll respond to those, and as appropriate, we'll post those as FAQs on HeroX as well next week. And if you don't get a chance to ask your question today and something pops later today or tomorrow, you have the email address to send those questions to me, and I'll turn those around as quickly as possible. We really hope this information that we shared excites you, inspires you to take action, and that now you have a better understanding of the process, the entire package of how this prize is really designed to help you strengthen your utility cybersecurity posture. So really encourage you to start working on your application today. As Simon and Fania have both said, we really look forward to reviewing your submissions after November 29th. And I want to thank you all for joining today and say goodbye, everyone.